People speak of wealth as though it were a river that some are born beside and others are condemned to thirst from afar. They are wrong. Wealth is not gold, it is the power to command it. It is not comfort, it is the will to seize it. And poverty is not the absence of possessions, it is the absence of purpose. There are men who have palaces yet live like beggars, for they tremble at every change of fortune. There are others who own nothing, yet move through the world like princes, because they understand this truth. Possession begins in the mind. He who calls himself poor builds a prison of his own words. He lowers his gaze, surrenders his pride, and kneels before those he imagines greater. But he who refuses that title, even when stripped of coin, home, and comfort, retains the one treasure no tyrant can confiscate, his will. A ruler, a conqueror, or a builder all begin with nothing. But they never think as if they have nothing. They turn every lack into a weapon. Hunger sharpens their cunning. Isolation forges their patience. Defeat teaches them strategy. Poverty, then, is not their curse. It is their instructor. Do not seek pity, seek power. Let others whimper of injustice, while you study the weaknesses of those who prosper. Fortune smiles not upon the righteous, but upon the prepared. And preparation begins when you cease to see yourself as a victim of fate. Remember, the world belongs not to those who have the most, but to those who believe they deserve everything. So, when you have nothing, stand straighter. Speak with command. Think like a sovereign who has lost his throne only for a moment, not a beggar who never had one. Wealth will come and go, but the power to create it remains with the one who refuses to bow before scarcity. Never think you're poor. For the moment you believe it, you will be. But if you believe yourself powerful, even your poverty will serve you. Power begins in the mind, not in possessions. The measure of a person's strength has never been the weight of gold they possess, nor the titles that follow their name, but the mastery they hold over their own thoughts. All empires, before they were forged in stone and steel, were first built within the confines of the human mind. The ruler who commands himself commands others, for power is not granted by circumstance, it is imposed by will. The beggar and the king may walk the same road, yet one imagines chains around his hands while the other imagines reins in his grasp. It is the difference in their thoughts that separates them, not the coins in their pockets. To understand this truth is to uncover the secret of influence. Those who believe themselves weak will always obey. Those who believe themselves destined to rule will eventually find the means to do so. Power does not arise from inheritance, but from conviction. The one who trains his mind to reject despair, who refuses to see failure as ruin, transforms obstacles into instruments. The world bends not to wealth, but to certainty. When a man speaks with unshaken confidence, others feel the gravity of his belief and align with it, even against their own reason. That is the silent conquest of the strong mind, the ability to turn belief into reality without a single act of force. Possessions are fleeting symbols. They can be stolen, burned, or broken. Yet the will that created them can create again. This is why the powerful remain unbroken in loss, while the weak perish in comfort. A mind accustomed to command is not disturbed by misfortune. It studies misfortune, dissects it, and learns its pattern. The weak cry at the turning of fate, but the strong smile, for they see only a new game to master. The battlefield of life belongs to those who understand that thought precedes all victories. Every throne was first a dream, every conquest a decision. Those who seek power through possessions misunderstand its nature. They believe influence flows from the external to the internal, that riches breed authority, and authority breeds control. But the inverse is true. Inner dominion over fear, over impulse, over the need for approval creates the kind of presence that draws wealth, loyalty, and submission. The merchant who controls his greed will outlast the one who is consumed by it. The general who commands his own doubt will command the loyalty of his army. The leader who governs his emotions becomes untouchable, for his enemies cannot provoke what he has mastered. The poverty of the mind is the only real poverty. A person may be stripped of everything and yet remain dangerous if his mind still hungers for dominion. Those who cultivate such a mind cannot truly lose, because they no longer depend on what can be taken. Their power exists before they act, before they speak, before they possess, because it resides in the one place no other can conquer, their own thought. Poverty is perception, not circumstance. It begins not in the emptiness of one's purse, but in the surrender of one's mind. The man who declares himself poor does so not because the world has deprived him, but because he has agreed to be deprived. True poverty is not the absence of wealth, but the acceptance of inferiority. When a man convinces himself that he has less, he begins to act as though he deserves less. From that moment, the chains are not around his body. They are forged within his thoughts. The illusion of poverty is the most effective control the world exerts over the weak. They are taught to measure worth in possessions, to see themselves reflected in the coins of others. The result is a race not for mastery, but for validation. Those who fall into this illusion remain enslaved to envy. They serve willingly those who seem richer, for they believe value can be borrowed from gold, as if the shadow of another's wealth could warm them. The truth is colder. Wealth does not elevate the spirit of the poor-minded. It exposes it. The more they gain, the more fearful they become of losing, and thus they remain poor in thought even when surrounded by abundance. There is no greater deception than believing that scarcity defines you. When a person begins to think in terms of lack, every action becomes timid. Every opportunity looks like a risk. Every success of others like an accusation. Such a mind closes itself to ambition, and ambition is the root of all greatness. To think oneself poor is to disarm oneself before even entering the battle for life. To think oneself powerful, even in rags, is to carry an invisible weapon that others cannot see but always feel. The poor spirit apologizes for existing. The rich spirit demands to be recognized. Those who understand this truth manipulate others easily. They whisper into the ears of men that fortune is unfair, that they were born without advantage, that the game is already lost. And while the weak lament the cruelty of the world, the strong quietly learn its rules. They know that wealth flows towards certainty, not pity. They know that power gravitates to those who act like they already possess it. This is why two men may stand in the same dust, yet one commands armies while the other obeys. The difference is not what they own, but what they believe they deserve. The moment a man refuses to see himself as poor, he becomes dangerous. He starts to act as though the world owes him recognition, and in that conviction, he finds the courage to demand it. Poverty, therefore, is not a permanent state. It is a temporary surrender. The poor man who refuses to think like one begins to see wealth as inevitable, not impossible. And when the mind no longer accepts limitation, the world begins to conspire to prove it right. Will is the true currency of dominion. Gold buys obedience. Fear sustains order. But only will creates power that cannot be stolen. A person of will does not depend on chance, favor, or mercy. They bend circumstances through sheer persistence until the world yields. The strength of will transforms a beggar into a ruler, while the absence of it reduces kings to servants of their own comfort. Those who possess will understand that every obstacle is only a question of endurance, and they are patient enough to answer it with unbroken resolve. All authority begins with the act of deciding and persisting beyond resistance. Wealth without will is fragile, easily lost to the tides of fortune. A man may inherit empires yet lose them through weakness of spirit, for what he has not built within himself cannot be sustained by others. The willful, however, can create empires from nothing. They command not through entitlement, but through their ability to endure where others falter. When men of lesser determination grow weary, the man of will advances. When all others doubt, he alone continues to act. In that persistence lies the essence of dominion. Will is the weapon that cannot be confiscated. It is forged in solitude, strengthened by failure, and sharpened by rejection. Every time the world says no, will responds with yet. The weak see defeat as a verdict. The strong see it as a test. They understand that reality eventually bends to those who refuse to yield. The willful man's victories are not sudden. They are inevitable. The slow triumph of one who has outlasted all opposition. His power comes not from external support, but from an inner commandment to prevail, regardless of cost. Those who lack will seek to borrow it from others. They attach themselves to leaders, to ideologies, to illusions of strength. But imitation never creates true control. A borrowed will is a fragile structure, easily shattered when the world turns hostile. Real power requires the discipline to stand alone, to make decisions without applause or assurance. The one who can maintain his course in silence and isolation possesses a strength that armies cannot match. For while fortune may favor the bold, it ultimately serves the relentless. Will is the foundation of every conquest, visible or hidden. It governs ambition, strategy, and patience. It gives a man authority over himself first, and through that, over others. The masses follow those who appear unbreakable because they mistake will for destiny. They see in the willful a reflection of what they lack, and are drawn to it as moths to fire. This is how the few rule the many, not through inheritance or wealth, but through the display of unwavering certainty. The true sovereign is not the one who owns the crown, but the one whose will made it possible to exist. Fortune favors the prepared, not the deserving. The world is not governed by fairness, but by readiness. Many believe that virtue or good intent should naturally attract reward, yet history mocks this illusion. The strong rise not because they are righteous, but because they are vigilant. The universe has no concern for justice. It responds only to those who anticipate its indifference. Preparation is the armor that shields ambition from ruin, while the dream of deserving blinds the weak. Those who wait for opportunity to be fair remain forever at its mercy. Those who prepare command it when it appears. The illusion of deserving is the most seductive form of weakness. It convinces the idle that patience is a virtue, when it is often a disguise for fear. Men who think they deserve greatness spend their years imagining it, while the prepared seize it from their grasp. The prepared man studies the terrain before the battle begins. He trains for storms before the clouds gather. He expects betrayal, scarcity, and loss, and thus none of them surprise him. To be prepared is to deny fate the power to humiliate you. When others curse fortune, the prepared adjust their plans. Preparation transforms misfortune into advantage. It is the art of seeing the inevitable before it arrives, and turning it into a servant. The one who anticipates chaos is calm in its midst. The one who believes he deserves peace is shattered by its absence. Fortune, like a predator, circles the careless but hesitates before the alert. Those who prepare make luck irrelevant because they have already shaped the outcome long before others notice the game has begun. In every field, war, politics, survival, ambition, it is the same principle. Readiness conquers luck. Deserving is a word for the powerless. It is spoken by those who wish to trade effort for sympathy. They appeal to morality to mask their lack of strategy. But fortune is deaf to such appeals. It moves according to strength, not sentiment. The prepared man does not ask to be given what he believes is his due. He ensures there is no one else better positioned to take it. The one who understands this never wastes breath, demanding recognition. He makes himself indispensable, and necessity forces the world to acknowledge him. Preparation is not merely action, it is perception sharpened by foresight. It means knowing that tomorrow belongs to those who plan today. That opportunity disguises itself as difficulty, and that success is the final reward of those who endure unseen labor. The deserving man prays for timing. The prepared man creates it. Where others hesitate, he has already moved. Where others seek fairness, he seeks leverage. Fortune may appear to smile by chance, but it is always in debt to those who expected her arrival long before she knocked. Control your thoughts, and you control your world. Every empire begins with the mastery of a single kingdom, the mind. The thoughts that occupy it shape the actions that follow, and the actions in turn define destiny. A man who cannot command his thoughts is ruled by them, swayed by impulse, fear, and desire like a leaf in the wind. But the one who learns to discipline the inner voice gains dominion over everything beyond himself. The world bends to the self-governed because they act with precision while others act with confusion. Thought is the first weapon of power, and to wield it without control is to invite self-destruction. The weak imagine that control means suppression, that strength lies in denying the chaos within. The wise understand that mastery is not silence, but command. They do not flee from their darker impulses. They study them, harness them, and direct them toward purpose. Rage becomes resolve. Envy becomes ambition. Fear becomes vigilance. The mind, once disciplined, transforms every emotion into strategy. The untrained mind wastes its power in reaction. The trained mind converts reaction into calculation. The difference between the ruler and the ruled lies not in circumstance, but in the ability to think clearly when others drown in emotion. Every manipulation begins with control of perception. He who governs his thoughts governs his reactions, and by extension, governs how others must react to him. The one who cannot be provoked gains power over the one who seeks to provoke. The man who does not reveal the turmoil within becomes a mystery, and mystery commands respect. In this way, mental control becomes not only self-defense, but also influence. It is the unseen weapon that turns every conversation, every encounter, every conflict in one's favor. Those who fail to master their thoughts become slaves to their moods. They are prisoners of every passing doubt, every word of criticism, every fleeting desire. They mistake feeling for truth and impulse for direction. Such people cannot lead, for they are led by whatever emotion shouts the loudest. Their instability makes them predictable, and predictability is weakness. To be powerful is to be unreadable, calm in storm, deliberate in every word. The one who governs his inner realm can deceive, persuade, and endure because he no longer reacts, he decides. Control of thought is the root of all strategy. It allows patience in humiliation, silence in temptation, and focus in distraction. The man who commands his thoughts sees what others overlook, acts when others hesitate, and restrains himself when others overreach. In this restraint lies superiority. Fortune and chaos obey no man, but the mind can make order from both. Those who seek to dominate others must first master the battlefield within, for no conquest of the outer world endures if the conqueror is defeated by his own thoughts. Weakness is born from self-pity. The moment one begins to feel wronged by fate, the decay of strength begins. Self-pity disguises itself as humility and reflection, yet it poisons the will more efficiently than defeat. The man who pities himself imagines that his suffering entitles him to mercy, and in doing so, he relinquishes the power to change it. He seeks comfort in sympathy rather than command in adversity. Every complaint he utters carves away a fragment of his authority, until he becomes a spectator of his own misfortune, content to watch instead of to act. The world offers no reward for sorrow. It listens to strength, not lamentation. Those who endure quietly, who turn their wounds into discipline, rise. Those who broadcast their suffering, hoping for deliverance, remain trapped within it. Pity feeds weakness because it teaches dependence. It whispers that others must fix what one refuses to confront. But no savior arrives for the self-pitying. They are left behind while the ruthless march forward. The man who resists pity, even in ruin, retains control. Misery cannot master him, for he refuses to worship it. Self-pity creates blindness. It convinces the weak that their enemies are external fortune, society, betrayal when their true enemy lives within. The indulgence of sorrow clouds judgment, turning minor misfortunes into tragedies and temporary defeats into lifelong excuses. The one who pities himself cannot see opportunity because his eyes are fixed on injustice. He measures his worth through wounds, and the deeper they feel, the more righteous he believes himself to be. Such a man is harmless, for his suffering becomes his identity. Power recoils from him, knowing he will never claim it. Strength, by contrast, is indifferent to fairness. The strong do not ask why hardship found them. They ask how it can be used. They convert pain into focus, betrayal into wisdom, failure into weaponry. This alchemy of adversity is impossible for the self-pitying, who cling to suffering as proof of innocence. The powerful have no need to be innocent, they prefer to be effective. They understand that self-pity delays evolution, that each moment spent lamenting misfortune is stolen from the time that could have been used to conquer it. Self-pity also breeds manipulation. It teaches men to seek attention rather than victory, to trade dignity for sympathy. They learn to perform weakness to earn compassion, and soon they become addicted to it. But sympathy is a leash. It binds them to the mercy of others. True strength rejects pity from self and from others alike. The man who stands unbowed even in despair inspires fear and respect, while the one who wallows invites only contempt. To rule one's world, one must silence the voice that seeks pity and amplify the one that demands action. The difference between ruin and reign begins in that moment of choice, whether to curse fate or to command it. Every loss is a lesson in strategy. Defeat is not a sentence. It is instruction written in pain. The weak see loss as proof of inadequacy, but the strong study it as a map. Every failure reveals the hidden laws of power. the silent mistakes of ambition, and the predictable errors of emotion. The wise do not mourn their losses, they dissect them. They examine every wound like a general surveys the battlefield after retreat, learning where the enemy was underestimated, where patience was abandoned, where pride clouded judgment. Loss refines strategy because it removes illusion. Only through loss does one see the world as it truly operates, stripped of the comforting lies that success allows. Victory often blinds, but defeat sharpens sight. The man who wins without falling learns arrogance, not mastery. He believes fortune is his ally, not realizing she flirts with all who seem strong until she grows bored. The man who has lost and risen again carries a different power. He no longer fears ruin, for he has met it and endured. Such a person becomes dangerous because he acts without fragility. He has seen the worst and discovered it survivable. Each loss has tempered him like iron in fire, making his strategy colder, cleaner, and less clouded by hope. Loss teaches what success conceals. It exposes false allies, reveals unreliable desires, and uncovers the limits of endurance. It separates what is essential from what is vanity. A strategist learns that emotion is the most expensive weakness, that attachment blinds judgment, and that mercy, while noble, can be fatal. The defeated learn the importance of preparation, deception, and timing, not from theory, but from pain. It is in failure that true cunning is born, because one must think beyond instinct to rise again. The wounds of loss, when embraced, become the foundation of resilience. Every empire that endured was built upon ruins. The ashes of the first attempt become the mortar of the second. The conqueror who has never fallen builds only castles of pride, but the one who has lost builds fortresses of knowledge. Each setback teaches calculation, when to advance, when to wait, when to sacrifice. A man who studies his losses does not repeat them, he evolves. He no longer seeks easy victories but lasting ones. His actions become deliberate, his patience deep, his foresight deadly. Loss strips away comfort, and with it, illusion. It shows a man the difference between desire and discipline. Desire wants the crown. Discipline learns how to keep it. Only through the bitterness of failure does a man understand the true cost of mastery. Those who fear loss never achieve dominion because they avoid the battles that shape conquerors. Those who embrace it emerge not with sorrow, but with a mind sharpened by necessity. The defeated who learn do not remain defeated. They become architects of strategy, creators of power drawn from the very substance of their ruin. Command respect even when you have nothing. Authority is not granted by position, wealth, or recognition. It is drawn from presence. A person who carries themselves with quiet certainty imposes power even in poverty. Respect is not begged for. It is extracted through the force of character. The one who understands this never kneels before circumstance. He may lose his crown, his gold, his allies, but he never loses the tone of command. That tone does not come from arrogance, but from the unshakable belief that he remains unbroken. When others look upon him, they sense it an invisible strength that demands acknowledgement even from enemies. Those who depend on external signs of power are fragile, for when those symbols vanish, so does their identity. They command only as long as they can pay for obedience. But the one who commands respect without possession has mastered the deeper art of influence. His power exists in the confidence of his gaze, the precision of his words, and the steadiness of his silence. He speaks less because he does not need to plead. He moves deliberately because he does not need to rush. Such composure unsettles those who seek to dominate him, for they cannot find weakness to exploit. When a man has nothing, yet acts as though he owns everything, the world grows uncertain. Others question what invisible force gives him such assurance. This is the power of perception, the ability to project mastery when deprived of means. The poor man who stands upright among kings earns their unease, for he exposes the fragility of their dependence on wealth and title. They sense in him something they lack, independence of spirit. That alone commands respect, for true authority belongs to the one who cannot be humiliated by loss. Respect is not a gift, it is a consequence. It follows the man who respects himself without need of witness. When he speaks, he does not seek approval. When he acts, he does not seek praise. His composure signals discipline, his restraint signals confidence, and his endurance signals command. Those who encounter him instinctively adjust their tone, for power recognized cannot be ignored. Even in rags, he possesses a kind of royalty that gold cannot replicate. To command respect when destitute requires mastery over pride and fear. Pride must not turn into desperation for recognition, and fear must not dictate submission. The self-governed man stands in balance, humble in words, but sovereign in demeanor. He neither apologizes for his state nor boasts of imagined strength. He simply exists with such certainty that others yield to it. The world instinctively bows before conviction, for conviction resembles destiny. The man who carries himself as though he is destined for greatness invites others to behave as though it is already true. This illusion, repeated long enough, ceases to be illusion at all. In commanding respect, without possession, one learns the essence of true rule, that power begins not with what is owned, but with what cannot be taken. The poor spirit serves, the rich mind rules. True hierarchy is not built upon inheritance, status, or privilege, but upon mental wealth. A poor spirit clings to comfort, craves approval, and waits for instruction. It fears uncertainty because it has been trained to obey. A rich mind, however, hungers for control. It sees opportunity where others see boundaries. The difference lies not in circumstance, but in perception. The poor spirit believes in limitation. The rich mind believes in creation. Those who think richly possess the courage to imagine beyond survival, while those who think poorly defend the very systems that keep them small. A poor spirit serves because it must. It trades independence for security, choosing the illusion of stability over the burden of freedom. It bows to authority not because authority is right, but because it dreads the cost of rebellion. Such a person is easy to command. They have surrendered before being conquered. They wait for permission to act, to speak, to dream. They exist within cages they helped build, convincing themselves that obedience is wisdom. The poor spirit is not defined by lack of money, but by the fear of standing alone. The rich mind, in contrast, does not beg, it builds. It understands that ideas, not possessions, generate influence. Every empire began as a thought in a daring mind. Wealth and power follow intellect that refuses to conform. The rich mind studies the world not to complain about its unfairness, but to exploit its patterns. It bends systems rather than submitting to them. Even in defeat, it plots. Even in poverty, it commands. The world instinctively serves those who think with clarity and purpose, for people are drawn to certainty as soldiers are drawn to banners. To rule, one must think expansively. The poor spirit imagines scarcity. The rich mind invents abundance. When faced with a closed door, the poor spirit knocks timidly. The rich mind builds another entrance. The former blames circumstance. The latter redefines it. The poor spirit asks, "Why me?" while the rich mind asks, "Why not me?" This difference in thought determines the course of lives and the rise and fall of nations. The poor spirit believes that power is given. The rich mind knows it must be taken. A rich mind commands not by shouting, but by vision. It leads because others can sense direction in its presence. Its words carry weight because they emerge from understanding, not desperation. Those who think richly see service as a tool, not a destiny. They use obedience strategically, knowing when to appear compliant to gather strength. The poor spirit serves forever. The rich mind serves only until it learns how to rule. The transformation from servitude to sovereignty begins in thought. Those who wish to rise must first abandon the comfort of dependence and embrace the discipline of command. The mind that refuses to kneel eventually teaches the world to stand aside. Never beg for power, become it. Power that is begged for is borrowed, and what is borrowed must always be returned. The one who kneels for strength declares through his posture that he is unworthy to hold it. Power does not answer to requests. It responds to presence. Those who beg for it misunderstand its nature. Power is not a favor granted by the world, nor a gift of destiny. It is the natural consequence of dominance, of the mind, of circumstance, and of the self. To become power is to reach a state where authority no longer needs to be spoken, because it radiates through action, through restraint, through the quiet certainty of control.